All right, fans of music, welcome. Harmless Dave here. Not only talking about music, but talking about um, the media, the so-called rock media, and doing it in real time for like a half dozen or so real people who remain, just like you and just like me. I know for a fact there are a lot of people who've been watching this channel who may be getting frustrated with my content and my coverage of the Eric Clapton situation. I understand that, but I'm going to continue defending Eric Clapton, Van Morrison, Travis Tritt. Yeah, there are actually a few prominent performers who are not drinking the Kool-Aid. And this website here, which has guitar in the title, put out something yesterday. The website is supposed to be talking about guitars. You know, Eric Clapton, he's a pretty good guitar player. Some consider Clapton to be the best ever. I don't know. It's Clapton, Hendrix, Neil Schon, name your blues guitarist from the old days and put them on a list. But we'll say contemporary, modern era guitar players, Eric Clapton, if not the best, one of the best. And that's really not that debatable. All right. So here's the headline. Eric Clapton says being criticized for his misinformed, who says it's misinformed? Dangerous thing. And by the way, I use the word thing as a euphemism for either injecting the thing or getting the thing. And today it's almost like if you inject the thing, you're probably going to get the thing, because I've been seeing this happen a lot. So these are words I use just in case you're joining and you're wondering, you know, why I say it like that. So again, you have to put the V word in there. So Eric Clapton says being criticized for his misinformed and dangerous thing stance is an affirmation that I've been doing the right thing. All right, now that's supposed to be a headline. I don't think Eric Clapton said the words misinformed or dangerous. I don't think Robert F. Kennedy, who was doing the interview, said, "Hey, Eric, how do you feel about being criticized for your misinformed and dangerous stance? How do you feel about that, Eric Clapton?" Says Clapton gave his first interview in some time to Robert F. Kennedy Jr., a staunch anti-thinger who touts the disproven by who? And harmful claim that the thing, especially the older things, not sure about this current thing, causes autism. Okay, it's been disproved, debunked. Sure it has. Sure it has. Sure it has. Folks, you know, I could say I'm up to here with this stuff, but it's way higher. All right, so Eric Clapton has claimed the criticism. They reiterate that. Eric Clapton spoke on Kennedy's Defender website. Remember when people used to like the Kennedys? When they were true neoliberals and they weren't touting the civil liberties. They weren't talking about civil liberties. They were talking about neoliberal politics. And then, yeah, man, you know, it's awesome then. A cornerstone of the anti-thing movement, this view stems from a single discredited paper, one which has been rejected by the overwhelming majority of doctors. No. Here, okay. The overwhelming majority of doctors. Most doctors don't even look into this because they're being paid off to use the thing. They get money for using the thing. Okay, if you need a quick tutorial, this isn't the injected thing, but this is a thing that you swallow, right? And no, it's not your pride, and no, it's not that congressman who slept with the Chinese spy, okay? Because his name is Swalwell. So a lot of people get confused on that, but no. The documentary Dope Sick, it's actually a series. I keep recommending that to people. If you don't have Hulu, I would go and watch it because that's a precursor to all of this. And it has to do with Oxy, you know, that wonderful thing that the pharmaceutical industry, Purdue Pharma specifically, said wasn't addictive. Yeah, it wasn't addictive. So the same group of people who went in on Purdue Pharma and all of their lies are now completely okay with discrediting. How do you discredit something that bears out statistics? And as far as autism goes, this isn't really about autism, but they're making it about autism now because the goalposts, like I keep saying, they've been moved so far down the field that they're not on the field, they're not in the parking lot, they're not in the town. They might be at the headquarters of Pfizer right now, where they're trying to figure out where to put the goalposts, probably in the basement. All right, so nobody can find them. It's apt that Clapton's first interview in months is with Kennedy. Here's why it's probably apt, because Eric Clapton is losing friends, and he probably wanted to talk to someone and just sort of vent and get his side of the story out there. Now, let's recap what happened to Eric Clapton. For those of you who think Eric Clapton, he's not cooperative, Eric Clapton did the thing. He didn't do it just once, he did it twice. By the way, according to certain countries like the UK, and this is pretty soon, if not in the United States and Israel, Eric Clapton won't be fully thinged anymore, and he'll need another thing in order to be fully thinged. And this is going to keep going and going. And, the website here that is dealing with guitars, because that's in their name, they're putting out information here about medical stuff. All right. So if they're going to throw discredited and all that, they're discredited by publishing this. This isn't a peer-reviewed journal. This is not a science publication. They're talking about Eric Clapton. Now, the funny thing is they have another link to the Robert Cray on cutting ties with Eric Clapton, and the quote, "I'd rather not associate with somebody who's on the extreme and being so selfish." Because what? Eric Clapton thought he was going to die. He thought he wasn't going to use his hands anymore. He plays guitar, Robert Cray, and you stupid website. He plays guitar, so it's kind of important that he's still able to play. Now, I read another article, which is basically linked to this one, that basically said it's really unfortunate now that Eric Clapton has decided to chime in again on this. We were hoping for a dignified retirement, a quiet, dignified retirement where we weren't going to hear about Eric Clapton's medical problems and his crazy views on the thing. By the way, when people say an overwhelming majority of doctors, how can that even be true? How can I get it? You know why? I get it because if anybody understands what's happening in the industry, in the so-called medical business right now, medical industrial complex, we'll call it, the CDC or some other government agency sends a flow chart in from down on high, right? They send the flow chart to the hospital. The hospital follows the protocols, which again is a word I can't stand. They follow the measures, they follow the restrictions, they follow the lockdowns, all of these lovely protocols that have done so much for humanity, right? But they don't actually practice medicine anymore. What they do is they take orders from somebody and they follow those orders and they use medicine a little bit here and there to carry out the orders. But I think it's really not practicing medicine when you're giving somebody an experimental product and telling them this is the only solution to your problem, because that's what they're doing. Scientific American notes that Kennedy, that's Robert F. Kennedy Jr., has promoted propaganda completely unconnected to reality. Yeah, that's what the son of the slain former presidential candidate, senator, civil rights activist, I'm sure that's what he has been up to now for the past 20 or 30 years. Robert F. Kennedy has gone down this rabbit hole The media doesn't want to, because if they, discover the truth, then their spigot will be turned off. And that's what this is all about, people. The sponsorships, again, when you look at the advertisements going on, it's just insane. Now, they go on here because apparently there is a connection between fertility. There is a connection between fertility and the current thing. But of course, they're denying it. The Royal College of Obstetricians. And what's all this stuff that I'm seeing in alternative media? Is this like the moon landing, where people just stage these reactions, and these people come forward and they say, you know what? Before I did the thing, I wasn't having my time of the month. I'm trying to, put things into terms here that aren't too uncomfortable, right? But then I'm 60 years old and boop, it's back on. Because it's happening out there. It's happening. So, the Royal College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists say there is no biologically plausible mechanism by which current things would cause any impact on women's. How do they know this? There's no plausible mechanism. How about a failed thing that's not working properly and causing problems? Here's my stance on this. Okay, so, and I'm not going to keep going because it just gets worse and worse. It just gets worse and worse because these people seem to think it's a good idea that we all are guinea pigs. We are the trial. Okay, we are the trial. And there's no mention that Clapton, and there's never any mention that Clapton went and did the thing. There's no mention of that. He's worried about his daughters, according to the article, and if they're going to have issues. Now, what if his daughters, what if they have an issue? Would this publication come back and say, whoa, man, we were wrong? Because there are thousands of testimonials out there. And they're living in this very narrow reality where they choose to believe what they believe. They choose not to go outside of what they believe. They think this, number one, it's ridiculous to think that this one thing, even if it worked, was the only solution to all of these problems. That this is it. We just become pincushions, and this is the way to perfect health, because that's ridiculous. That's absolutely ridiculous. And anyone who thinks that, here's what I think. The entire healthcare system needs a huge realignment. And those of you who've been relying on pharma now for 100 years to solve your problems, and the life expectancy went up and now it's starting to go down again, but people have more disease than before. They have more problems. Nobody really encourages healthy eating. Nobody encourages lifestyle choices. Yeah, there's an industry out there that gets you set up on January 1st every year, and then by like January 10th, you're back to eating ring dings and ho-hos, So, I mean, it's just, and they put all of this stuff in the food, right? What's that? Corn syrup. It's like corn syrup is in everything. Look, it's corn syrup. Corn, it's made out of corn. That's good for you. Why am I off and straying from the tangent here? Because these people have so much faith in people who've been wrong for about 100 years now. They've been wrong, okay? And you cannot thing your way to good health. And you're going to say, well, it's not meant for that. Well, but it's replacing, this has become a religion. And like I have been saying, in some countries, it's going to go to 3. 2 isn't enough. Well, even the emperor the other day says it's waning. He said it, came out of his mouth. He says it's waning. And so the solution isn't reevaluating this. It's more. That's the solution. Keep doing it. Do another one. Hit me again. Well, you're at 22. I can't hit you again. You know what I mean? Blackjack is 21, right? So these media publications, these rock publications, right? Here's an idea, right? You want Eric Clapton to go quietly into the night and just take his injury and keep it to himself, right? You want him to shut up. And here's the thing. I think Clapton found a bit of a purpose. I think he was on his way out and he would have gone gently. He did what he was supposed to do. And then all of a sudden, something happened. Whoops. Well, that wasn't supposed to happen. He didn't get the placebo. What happened? What happened to Eric? And then you're hearing that news. What happened to Eric? He's not going along with this. What's going on? Robert Cray. I can't affiliate with somebody so extreme. Really? Robert, somebody who my friend had a bad reaction and I trusted him and I had been around him for years and didn't see any of this other stuff that's being talked about with Eric Clapton. In addition to, he's crazy because he's hanging out with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. See, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., if you follow him and listen to what he says, much like Dr. David Martin, you're going to find out so much information, it will make your head explode. And these media outlets, they trust the establishment. They trust certain groups of doctors, and they say the overwhelming majority. But a majority doesn't necessarily mean it's correct, right? A majority doesn't necessarily mean consensus. It just means a bunch of people think the same way. It's easy to be in the groupthink strategy. It's easy just to do that because there's no pressure on you. You're not out on a limb by yourself like Eric. And quite honestly, like me right now, I don't really care, but there are going to be more and more attacks on people who are thinking for themselves and who aren't watching MSNBC every night for news coverage, who aren't getting their medical advice from Sanjay Gupta, and we found how hollow Gupta was when he went on with Joe Rogan, when Joe Rogan just called him out and said, "You're wrong." Why did they say that? They're wrong. Well, they shouldn't have said that. But of course, Gupta doubles down and he goes over to Sesame Street telling the little kids, "Hey, this is great." And they have little Band-Aids on the Muppets after they did the thing. This is creepy, folks. This is really creepy. And this is the kind of propaganda that they're pushing. The overwhelming majority. Really? So here's, if I had a reaction and everybody was telling me I was crazy or saying that they would still tell me this is safe. What's wrong with you? But it wasn't safe for me. So what do you say about me? And this is what's weird is that there's an intellectual impasse, like a roadblock that they set up where they just keep saying the same thing over and over again. I mean, you can get hit by a truck and they would say, well, no, that wasn't a truck. It wasn't a truck. I don't know. It's all in your mind. Well, there's blood splatter everywhere. I don't think that's, if somebody on the soccer field just keels over a couple days after doing the thing and they go, it's just a coincidence. Just a coincidence. I don't care how many doctors or obstetricians or gynecologists come forward. If he's worried about his daughters for real, let Eric Clapton have that worry. You're going to criticize him for worrying about his kids? Well, he shouldn't even be talking about this because this has been debunked and fact checked. Look, you know what? If you all, here's the advice, like Gene Simmons gave everybody advice or basically made a declaration about them and said, who cares? These people are this stupid and they want to go ahead and not do this. Good riddance to them, because at least with Gene's logic is I did the thing, so I'm safe. I'm going to be fine. They can't even let us do that though. They want us to go down with their ship. They want us to be miserable with them. And they want government control over everybody's life until it's 100% compliance. That's all that will make them happy. And I've got news for them. Even if they got that kind of compliance, this wouldn't be going away. The king said so. The little emperor king said so the other day. He basically admitted that we're always going to have this and there's no way to get rid of it other than to keep doing the thing. I'm sorry. I don't want chemicals every 6 months. I don't want things that aren't on the packaging. I don't want that. I wouldn't do that with food. Why would you do that with this? Think about that. I know a lot of people see, and this is why they've got everybody, because people don't look at ingredients on packages anymore of food. They just say, oh, it's these are onion rings. Yeah. How much onion is actually in those onion rings? And how much like fake food material is in most of your food today? Seriously. And that's where we're at. So if somebody comes in and says, hey, why don't we take a holistic approach? Why don't we let, Moderna make tires, right? Since they're petroleum based, Moderna can come in and be a tire company and make, tires for cars, even though I know they want to get rid of cars by 2030, or make you drive electric cars or whatever it is. You'll own nothing and you'll be happy. I've seen the whole Great Reset thing. Now, are all these people being paid off by somebody? Because that's very plausible. That's totally plausible. Are all these doctors with these amazing, overwhelming majority peer-reviewed studies, are they being financed or funded? Because I've checked out some of these crazy things that Robert F. Kennedy has been in, like documentaries and books that he's written. New book coming out by RFK Jr. is supposed to be awesome. I would highly recommend it. It's a counter narrative. Look, if you're skeptical of what I'm saying, get another perspective. I mean, these people, all they want to do is impugn the person who had the reaction, who is telling you that based on his experience, he wouldn't do this. And they're telling him to retire and be quiet. That's what they're saying. We were hoping Eric Clapton would have a dignified retirement, but that's not the case. Wow. Wow. I mean, stop playing guitar, Eric. We don't want to hear you anymore. We don't want to hear your music, even though your music over the last half century plus has been spectacular. But we don't want to hear it anymore. We're not wishing you well. We're not wishing you good health. We're not sorry for what happened to you. These are evil, evil people. Bottom line. Even if their so-called thing worked wonders and had real statistical support, if somebody, and I say this all the time, even if this thing was a panacea, I would still defend someone's right to not do it. It's your body. You're born with it. You decide what you're going to do with it. You don't work for the collective. The collective doesn't own you, although they're trying. They're working 24/7 to convince you that they know best. And Clapton, Van Morrison, some of the people who I'm sure have unfriended Eric Clapton, those people used to have a rebellious side. It's gone. They just, either they're lazy, they don't want to lose. Here's the bottom line. They don't want to lose financial support. And the people who speak out, yes, you're going to lose at least half your audience. I've said this. And in the old days, I was critical of bands who would gratuitously inject politics into their public stances and just talking about things that they didn't need to go and talk about. In the case of Eric Clapton, he has every right to talk about this. If nothing happened to Eric Clapton, he was fine, then I would say, you know what, Eric is probably, this is probably okay, but you still have a right to your opinion. And I don't understand why the media is so hell-bent on destroying this guy. And I think I'm one of the very few people on social media who has been consistently defending Eric Clapton, and I mean it with my heart. I just find this absolutely despicable, what they're doing to this guy. And what he's given to the music industry, you would think they would give him the benefit of the doubt, right? His life story, overcoming addiction, losing his son, 6-year-old son. You think they would kind of analyze the big picture and say, whoa, whoa, whoa. I mean, but instead they're digging up the dirt. Well, he used to do drugs. He used to be an alcoholic. He used to do this. He said these things. And you're like, so it's just deconstructing. You want to shut him up. You want to discourage him and you want to shut him up. Well, there are a few Eric Claptons out here. I can guarantee you, based on the feedback I'm getting on this page, based on the support over on Patreon and in other social media, platforms, on those platforms, there's more than one Eric Clapton, and we ain't going away. We're not. I mean, someday we're not going to be here, and someone's going to have to carry on the tradition and try to fix the healthcare system. The healthcare system is broken. It might be beyond repair, but I do think that if we actually got back to holistic medicine and got away from the Carnegie, Rockefeller model, Purdue Pharma model, again, go watch Dope Sick on Hulu. If we could get away from that model and get back to actually treating disease rather than just trying to placate it and, sort of lessen the symptoms or lessen the pain, eliminating the source of these problems, you would have to get back to a much more natural and holistic approach. And most people know that in their hearts. This whole thing that's unfolded for 2 years now, it's been an advertisement for a different approach. Now, I'm not a doctor, okay? And neither are all these. A publication with guitar dot something in their profile and on their social media or their website, I don't know what makes them more authoritative on this. If they're going to quote studies, if they're going to quote all sides and they're going to give equal time to people who disagree with the continuous gaslighting and propaganda that they do, even if that person is in a minority, I've always been told you have a right to a second opinion and a third opinion. All right. And then you have informed consent. But these people just blast you so you don't have informed consent because they're only giving you one viewpoint and they're making you feel bad if you don't agree with their majority consensus viewpoint. Consensus isn't science, by the way. You know what is science? Skepticism. Skepticism allows for real science to occur. Consensus shuts down additional trials, additional experimentation. It shuts it all down because they think they've got the answer. It's like the Calvinist scientist, it's just ridiculous. So things have changed a lot, but they've been changing for a long time. The reason they don't like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is because he's super informed. He's a Kennedy, and they used to love the Kennedys, and it kind of dovetails with Eric Clapton. Wow, we used to love Eric Clapton. What happened to these people, right? So they're in shock that, NBA stars, was it, I forget which, Cardi B or somebody like that. They hate when these people start to think for themselves. Well, wait, they're straying outside where they're supposed to be. We've got to throw out a whole bunch of information to counter that one little statement they made. Hey, my boyfriend, something happened to him. Now he can't do something because he did the thing. And well, no, that had nothing to do with it. Really? Really? So again, anecdotal evidence, I guess, is nothing compared to a consensus-driven, peer-reviewed, big pharma financed study. Doesn't compare to that. This is all about money. It's always about the money, which is sad, and follow it. By the way, all this Build Back Better nonsense, all going to go into the coffers of big pharma, or a big chunk of it. Big chunk. You watch, you follow where that money's going to go, and it's going to be leading to more lockdowns, more restrictions, more measures, more protocols. This isn't just about Eric Clapton. This is about surviving medical tyranny. That's what this is about. All right. I could go on, but I've already gone too far and for too long. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Yes, Patreon for $1 a month if you can do it, $2, $5, whatever you can afford. I have a hunch that I'm going to be needing some help, and I'm hoping that the platform will continue, but we shall see. We do have to have a parachute just in case. So I need you all to be the parachute. Thanks again, and I will talk soon.